Hello everyone. Well, it's spring in the Midwest, so you know there's going to be some wild weather, and well, it looks like we're going to see some of that wild weather Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But before we get to that, let's start with today, and in many locations it's going to be dry. But I do have to mention the chance of rain and snow for some in southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, mainly during the morning hours, and then in Michigan and northern Ohio, mainly in the afternoon hours. We are talking about a rain-snow mix, and some could see up to a half an inch of snow, but most are going to see less of that. Now, besides those areas, everyone else dry. Look at the difference in temperatures, though. So the cause of this rain-snow mix is a cold front pushing to the southeast, and look at the difference in temperatures. Upper 50s, St. Louis, Cincinnati, but upper 30s, Cedar Rapids, Chicago, and Saginaw, and just colder north of there. The only other noteworthy thing today is it's going to be breezy in many locations across the Midwest, but I got to call it windy, gusts 35 miles per hour in central and western Nebraska. But everywhere else, just breezy conditions. Now, tonight looks completely dry. That chance of a rain-snow mix in the eastern part of the area coming to an end, and mainly just partly cloudy skies across the Midwest, but in many locations below normal temperatures, and that's particularly the case in Wisconsin, Minnesota, North and South Dakota. Look at the temperatures in the teens, and can you believe it? In late March, single digits. How about 1 for the low in Fargo? That said, look to the south, look in Kansas, see those shades of green only cooling down into the 40s? That's a warm front that's already pushing in. I know I was just talking about a cold front, but already front pushing in, and temperatures are going to be on the rise. So now we're looking at Thursday morning, 8 a.m. And notice no issues for the morning commute. In fact, I don't see a chance of precipitation beginning until Thursday afternoon. And notice at noon, most still dry, but chance of showers coming back in Iowa and Minnesota. And initially just rain, but we will see some snow show up for some. I do think it's going to probably stay rain in southern Wisconsin, but notice as you go into northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, that's where the snow is going to be coming down. But this just shower activity. What we're a little bit concerned about for Thursday evening is a small chance of severe storms in Nebraska and Kansas. The severe threat just limited to Nebraska and Kansas for Thursday evening. Even here, we're not talking about widespread severe storms by any means. There will be thunderstorms, and there could be a couple of storms that are severe. So the chance beginning around 8 o'clock, probably seeing a peak about 9, 10 o'clock. I'll leave in the chance still 11 midnight, but I do think during the overnight hours, the chance coming to an end. And it particularly looks like southeastern Kansas and northeastern Nebraska, the best chance for storms and possibly severe storms. So this is 3 a.m. and now we're just transitioning back to showers, and I'm about to skip a whole lot of time here. 3 a.m. Friday morning all the way until 3 o'clock Friday afternoon. Now notice what's happened in that 12-hour period. More rain showing up in more locations, more showers and storms popping up, but no severe storms from 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. It is 3 p.m. Friday that the chance for severe storms begins, and not for everyone. Notice how we're talking about the chance of snow now, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, but a chance of severe storms on Friday, Iowa, Missouri, and on over to the east. So the chance beginning about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think the peak of the thunderstorm activity and the best chance for severe storms is probably going to be the early evening hours on Friday. Notice more shades of yellow showing up, indicating a good chance of storms and possibly some severe storms. So this is going to be a cold front that is on the move. And so once temperatures drop into the 40s, the chance of severe storms going away. But as long as your temperatures are in the 50s, at least in the 50s, there is going to be the potential for thunderstorms and severe storms. So notice it's a possibility. Kansas City, Cedar Rapids, Chicago, St. Louis, and even parts of southern Wisconsin. But as you get into northern Wisconsin, no chance of severe storms. So let's keep an eye on these temperatures. Now we're looking at 11 o'clock. And the chance for thunderstorms and severe storms will be coming to an end, again, where temperatures have dropped in the 40s. So this will be the end of the threat in Iowa, but the chance will continue even as late as 11 o'clock midnight into Illinois and Indiana, and maybe even Michigan and Ohio. Now, let's take a look at 4 a.m. Saturday morning. And notice how temperatures dropping in the 40s in even more locations. And by this point, even though temperatures still in the 50s and 60s in Ohio, I think the chance of storms temporarily going away. So the severe threat over with, by 4 a.m. Saturday morning for the Midwest. But now the attention is going to shift to snow and particularly wind. For some, heavy snow is definitely going to be the story, but I think the biggest story on Saturday is going to be the wind for most of us, because there are going to be a lot of locations in the Midwest that are just going to see widespread wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour, looking like a very windy day in many locations across the Midwest. In fact, even early Saturday morning, even in places where it's dry, like Omaha and Lincoln, for example, it's probably going to be dry 4 a.m. Saturday morning, but wind gusts could be as high as 50 miles per hour. So wind gusts 40, 50 miles per hour being very common. And we'll see the winds decrease as this area of low pressure moves off to the east. So though early morning hours it's going to be very windy around the Lincoln, Omaha area, you will see those very strong winds come to an end first. But in other locations, it's going to take a lot longer for these very strong winds to die down. And yes, 4 a.m., it looks like in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, some heavy snow coming down. And I do think the peak of the snow for everyone in the Midwest is going to be during the morning on Saturday, because as we get into the afternoon, this is noon, really transitioning to scattered snow showers. And the winds at this point will probably be coming down in Iowa, but I still think it's going to be very windy in Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, maybe even into the late afternoon hours, especially Michigan, Indiana, maybe finally starting to see some improvement in Wisconsin and Illinois at this point in the winds. And notice at this point, 4 o'clock, just isolated snow and rain showers. And I think the story will pretty much be over with by 8 o'clock Saturday evening. It's good news for Saturday night plans. Those winds, it won't be very windy anywhere in the Midwest anymore. And notice how for the vast majority of us, it will be dry. So I know that's a lot of information, so let's summarize things here. All right, so no severe threat today, but for Thursday, in the evening hours, at 2 spots we've got to talk about. Notice north central Nebraska into far southern South Dakota and also eastern Nebraska. Now, thunderstorms are going to be likely in these 2 locations. Heavy rain, lightning, and there's the possibility for a couple of severe storms in both of these locations. Not widespread, but a couple of severe storms in both these locations. Notice places like Kearney, Grand Island, Lincoln, Omaha not included in the severe threat for Thursday evening. And in a worst case scenario, what we're talking about in those couple of severe storms in both locations is up to quarter-size hail and wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour. What we're much more concerned about is Friday afternoon, Friday evening in particular, and then the early overnight hours as well. And not only are we just going to see a lot more heavy rain and lightning, but severe storms definitely looking more likely. And the worst case scenario is also looking worse. Now we're talking about up to golf ball size hail, wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. Yes, we do think there are going to be some isolated tornadoes. And yes, with all the heavy rain and lightning coming down, isolated flooded roads as well. And though there is a chance for this worst case scenario, all these hazards, anywhere shaded on this map, the area we're most concerned about is that area shaded in brown: eastern Iowa, eastern Missouri, central and southern Illinois. That is where these hazards are most likely, but it is a possibility anywhere shaded in green or yellow as well. Again, starting around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, especially in Iowa, Missouri, and then spreading to the east as we go through the evening and overnight hours. Finally, we've got to talk about the snow. Now, right off the bat, notice that there's a good chunk of the Midwest that's not going to see any snow. Kansas, Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, no snow at all. And then there's a whole lot of other folks that are only going to see a dusting, half an inch, 2 inches. Where we're talking about impactful snow is Minnesota and Wisconsin. And this is going to be a tricky snow forecast for Minnesota and Wisconsin, because look at the tight gradient. This is the current model average, but what I've got to stress is the current model average, since this is several days out, could still change. What we do see is the potential for a band of heavy snow that could produce snowfall totals 6-7 inches somewhere in Minnesota and Wisconsin. But again, this is the model average right now, but there are various possibilities. It is possible this model average could shift to the north, as some models are indicating, and that band of 6 to 7 inches that's currently indicated around Minneapolis and Green Bay, that could end up being farther to the north. That said, if the area of low pressure tracks a little bit farther south, then suddenly those 6-7 inch snow totals become a possibility for maybe places like La Crosse. Outside chance, maybe as far south as Madison. So while I don't expect much adjustments to the snow forecast in much of the Midwest, gotta say for Minnesota and Wisconsin, stay tuned. This could definitely still change.